Welcome to the Manifestation and Money podcast, where we bridge the worlds of the taboo topic of money with the woo-woo world of manifestation. We're your hosts, Chris and Jenny Schultz.
We're not just about dollars and cents around here. We're all about lifestyle design. You can be working towards financial independence while still living a life you love today.
Get ready for insightful conversations with guests who have embraced the FIRE movement by achieving financial independence and retiring early, as well as entrepreneurs and individuals who defied the norm and have paved their own way to a life they love.
Together, we'll explore the powerful connection between mindset, financial freedom, and living a purposeful life. And of course, we'll be sharing our own journey to how we carved our path to a seven-figure net worth before hitting the big 4-0. Are you ready to ignite your financial future? Then let's dive right in.
Welcome to the Manifestation and Money podcast, where your journey to financial independence and the life you love begins now. Joining me on the podcast today is Grace Adele Boyle. I had the pleasure of meeting and working with Grace within coaching circles and have seen her skills firsthand. She's an executive and creative coach who works with individuals and organizations looking to develop better leadership, transform communication, and connect to their inherent creativity. Grace has traveled extensively, worked in a variety of creative and business works, and is an artist herself, making compelling and relevant work that defies the confines of a single medium. She currently lives in the silent wilderness of the Rocky Mountains. Welcome to the Manifestation and Money podcast, Grace. I wanted to ask you to start, what's your current area of expertise and how did you arrive here?
My current area of expertise is executive and creative coaching. I arrived here through a lot of different work in a lot of different companies. Basically, I worked for pretty much small companies, so 10 employees, definitely always under 50. And I really got to see how company culture worked and didn't work. And it made me very passionate about wanting to have that area of life be highly functional and supportive to actually human beings' needs. One of the companies I worked for, we made an extensive amount of leadership material, personal development material. I felt so fortunate. I got paid to read books, interact with the authors, make all this content. But then I got to see people not applying it. And I thought, this is affecting people. And people spend most of their time at work, unless they're kind of lucky like us.
So
they kind of work from home and be closer to family.
They were having leaders come in and implement all of this material. Why wasn't the material being followed up with the people at work?
I think that there is a big difference between intellectualizing and integrating work. It's harder. It's much easier to read the book. It's much harder to apply it. Exactly. Because you mess up, right? You're like, I want to be a good person. I want to treat people well. And you stumble a little bit and you have to get up and you have to keep going. But there are definitely clear strategies that do work. And it's just about continuing to practice that. I think of a lot of things like mindfulness practice.
Yes.
It's not about sitting down and having perfect clarity of mind. I did it. I meditated perfectly. A+. It's about just noticing the thought, oh, it's here again. Kind of letting that go. But it's so exciting to be with small businesses. And it gave me a huge passion. For the creative coaching, I am an artist myself. I helped found a graphic design silk screening business a long time ago, and that helped me connect with so many different artists and really understand the creative process. And that work led to doing more work with a variety of artists, from musicians, writers, fine artists, photographers, dancers, all these different types. And I got to see that kind of, no matter what medium you picked, people are coming up against kind of those same self-doubts and struggles. And it's also incredibly satisfying to meet people there to help them through those projects and really take ideas and turn them into action. And I found I had a particular gift at that. So
do you have something in particular that lights you up when you're working with people?
Yeah, I think the crossover between both is when you can tell when people are talking about their work or an idea or a project. They're kind of going through the list they have in their head. And then you can see that spark of the thing they're really interested in and kind of taking that and flaming that a little bit more and getting it to grow, because both in the business world and the creative world, and at this point you have to be both.
Yes.
You can just see people really come to life. And if you can access that and grow the part that really inspires people, that feeds them instead of kind of draining them in that work energy way.
Yes.
It's so satisfying, and it keeps people excited about life, which is, the whole point.
Jenny and I have been having really deep discussions about the part where you're accessing something for business, like you have a business plan or you're working through these stages in the business. And then in the middle of that, there's this spark of like a one sentence or a one word or something that pops out at you. And you go like, what's the essence of that? Because that's the essence where you
Yes.
scrape away all of the madness that is going on in our brains all the time. And it's like, what's that thing that really excites you? What happens if you did that thing? Where's the success in that?
Exactly.
It's amazing.
Yes, yes, that's exactly it. It's identifying and then growing the spark.
So right now you're tackling executive coaching, correct?
Correct. I am tackling executive coaching.
And how is that working for you right now, Grace?
It's going well. I have a small group of clients right now that range. I mean, some are fine artists, some are working in high level executive positions. And so far, I'm learning so much with every single client, and they're so generous, which has just been incredible. With the executive clients, I bring levels of artistry to it and metaphor to create a little bit of a different kind of spark and environment and way to look at things and help bring that out in them. And then with the creative clients, because the artists that I'm working with are truly making a business out of it
Mm-hmm.
and having deadlines and very large projects that they're needing to finish, and bringing a little bit of that kind of business organization element to it and helping them thrive in that way. So they both feed each other.
I was going to
Which
say
is really cool.
you're feeding both of those clients from one another. I'm curious in
Yeah.
that realm when you're bringing artistry aspect of life to an executive client who's I'm assuming working much more in like a numbers game or a managing people game and all of that kind of thing. How does that help them access the information that they need?
I find the main thing I do is kind of, I mean, I listen and wait for that spark from people, and then I reflect that back to them. And you can really tell when they go from the drained about work and the stresses to the
Yes.
part that fills them up. And then taking that and seeing, okay, what does that feel like? What does that look like to you? When are you able to access that? What lessons are there for you? A lot of times I take some notes, which can include illustrations as well to kind of summarize what we've gone over. And usually it helps people instead of just a bullet point list, and I, of course, encourage people to take their own notes, but to have a little bit of a visual that sums up what we've discussed, what they've learned, really helps it stick. It's something that you can call upon very easily. Whole lesson comes back.
That's a really fascinating thing. If you're executive coaching someone and you see that spark of artistry, that's something that can take someone down a completely different path of how to access what they're after.
It's so healthy to do that. It helps you remember. It can also help metabolize stress. Like I just
Yes.
finished the book Burnout, and I love one of the examples they gave was, all the things to reduce stress is things you would expect, like, exercise and connection. But when she's like, I did everything the same. I was on the elliptical, but in my mind, I just imagined I was like Godzilla. And I was just like crushing these people in this corporation that were in my way. And she's like, I felt so much better afterwards. And like, even just getting someone to access that, you have to go buy a bunch of paints and you don't have to be, quote, good. Be like, if there were two stick figures having a conversation, what would
Yeah.
that conversation look like? Like, what do you wish was happening right now? And being able to create that, even just for yourself, it's pretty powerful to see the change it creates in people.
That's really, really cool. You mentioned that you've been all around the world. There are many destinations that you've been to. You've had
It's very true.
many jobs prior to the job that you hold now, which is a self-created job, I might add. One of the things that Jenny and I always focus on are side hustles or side gigs. Or tell the audience some of the side gigs that you've explored through your life that have had the most impact on your current state of mind.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I've had the non-side gigs, which, have the more official title of like project manager, creative strategist, copywriter. But I've done catering, wedding coordination, photography, writing, bartending and serving, house cleaner, gardener, and I did live interviews on the radio before people had podcasts, which was really fun. And the state of mind through all of that over years that I developed was so many lessons. But it's like, why are you doing this? And that answer can change, it can evolve, but usually you go into something thinking, gosh, I want to make money, I want to gain experience, or I want access. access to people, access to places. Like I write for magazines right now, and that gives me huge access to people.
Mm-hmm.
It's like still a side gig that I really enjoy doing. I get to interview really interesting people. It's so fulfilling. Same with photography. I mean, you can get backstage passes, you get to go into different events, and those connections can be invaluable. And then with the experience, you really can go in, and if you're just honest, like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm going to figure it out. Like wedding coordination, I was like, I'm going to Google this. Let's see how this works.
I figured it out as you go
And I
along.
just, yeah, figured out the flow and then over deliver as much as possible. You know, you want the fact that people are taking a risk on you and giving you that opportunity, I think is a big gift, and you want to reward that. But once you do that a few times and you have more experience, you know, do all that, you know, gather the testimonials, get your 5-star review, but then you can double your prices and then keep going and then do it again. So having a little bit of that scale mentality, and then also having the good common sense if you're doing it and it is not working, to be like, I quit.
I think what holds so many people back is the idea that you're going to fail at something. There's so much perfectionism out there. There's so much like we have to release it. We talk about this in our own business, right? There's perfection in imperfection. How did you manage the thought of it not working or you failing at something when you were doing something that you had never done before? How do you access your inner power?
Gosh, I'm scared all the time. Yeah. I mean, Elise Myers has really made this phrase popular, but do it scared. That's it. That's just the main thing. I mean, you know, one, none of these side hustles have involved life or death situations. Prepare as much as you can. Like one of my mentors, she's a coach too. Maya Deary, she's incredible. She has a podcast, Waves to Wisdom, but she would say, Grace, people with less resources and less intelligence have overcome more.
Mm-hmm.
Just do the best that you can with the information that you have in the time that you're given. I think the answer is you just go for it, which I know is, I wish I had the answer where it didn't feel scary. You know, I just end up, I do the thing, I reflect on it, I cry, I write, try to get the best lessons from it, and then I do it again. And developing a lot of self-compassion is good. And that helps you have compassion for others. Everyone's going to mess up. You know, I've seen
100%.
people at the highest levels mess up. Just because they're the CEO, just because they have tons of money, doesn't mean they're not going to make huge mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of giving yourself a little bit of a break too. And celebrating wins.
Your name is a word that we use in this house all the time, which is to give yourself grace. Give
Yeah.
yourself grace to wake up tired, get it done, have it not be perfect, hand it in anyways, do the best that you can.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, there is burnout on the other end of that.
100%. I've gone through that. I have taken it way too seriously and been so hard on myself in the past. And it didn't get me anywhere good. It didn't get me to success faster. Maybe if I had one secret besides self-management, it really would be to create a community around you that's supportive.
Mm-hmm.
However big that community is. If that's your dog, that's awesome. If that's a nuclear family, if that's a bunch of friends, having people who can share that vision with you so that when your vision of yourself gets small,
Yes.
that they can say, you're great. You can do this. And then you get to give that to them too, because we all need that. Nobody here is operating as like a rugged individual, no matter how American they feel.
We talk about accountability partners all the time, or an accountability, that same thing. It's that accountability group. And like you said, that can be anything from a dog that doesn't speak back to you or a cat that doesn't speak back to you to kids, spouse, somebody online that you connect with, somebody that you have a conversation with. And that can include, like for you and I, both in the coaching realm, that's a coach, that's fellow peers going through the same thing. There are huge communities out there. We're not alone.
Absolutely.
You and I spoke off camera about your housekeeping gig. And I think about that often because I think about you telling me one of the reasons that you did that, which was thinking about what your next steps were going to be while you were still doing a side gig. I'd love it if you shared that with the audience. Doing something that had an end goal, but the end goal wasn't the job itself.
That's a great question. So before COVID, I had always thought if I was going to do some side hustle, I mean, bartending is the quickest way to make money, but I'm much more mindful now about the spaces I want to enter and get exposed to. The housekeeping, the thing that it allowed me to do was to listen to a lot of books. in a short period of time, right? This was only like a couple months, but I really wanted to reflect on some deeper issues. I majored in philosophy. I'm always going to be wrestling with those deep questions of self and other in society. And it was so interesting because I got to go into a space where I could be completely on my own. I knew that I was going to do an absolute stellar job. And I got to go at my own pace. And through all the books I got to listen to, kind of the big questions of my next steps that I was wrestling with, it made me very clear on how determined I felt. It's like, this is my next step. I want to go forward with this. It was also humbling. I mean, it's very interesting to show up in a situation where somebody is paying you, thousands of dollars. They're referring to you as an expert. And that kind of interaction versus showing up at somebody's house with a vacuum and a
Yeah.
bag of cleaning supplies. And it was this moment where if you chose to, you could say, oh gosh, this hurts my feelings. But instead, you could be, that's so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I want to treat people kinder. And this helps me see that I might be dismissive in ways that don't align with my core values, don't align with the kind of human I want to be in this life. That was extremely helpful too.
I'll have conversations sometimes with, say, like a general contractor. And they'll say something like, it's more advantageous to me to only take big paying jobs and therefore treat that client gets a certain, whatever you may call it, there's a certain elevation in that client because they're paying more money. And my attitude has always been, you treat the client that is taking the smallest package the exact way that you teach the client that is taking 25 people from a corporation in. And the result of always doing that has been that there have been many times where that client that has taken that one small package has ended up being a client who I see several kids and the packages get bigger, or you were fantastic. Here's a lead into a business. So that if you're treating each of your clients in the same manner, that, for lack of a better description, that spreads the wealth. And it's not just monetary wealth, it's how that makes you feel, how you're reflected out into the business world, how you're reflected out into the personal world, that you're doing those things on a consistent basis, not just on a client by client basis.
Absolutely. I could not agree more that it just makes you feel better. And that includes, like, there's so much forgiveness for messing up, having a bad day, being a little short,
Mm-hmm.
with somebody. Like, that's human. But if there is some internal math of I'm going to treat you differently because of money or status, I mean, that is just a mirror for you to do some internal work. That is
Absolutely.
not a good way to go through the world. You are robbing yourself of happiness. Guarantee.
Absolutely. Can you share a couple or some of the biggest lessons that you've learned through your side hustles?
There's a book called Side Hustle by Chris Gilbo, and he really lays out a framework that this covers kind of the logical aspect of it. Like, people who want to do side hustle because they want to make money. He shows you very simple ways of, like, I'm just going to test this so that you don't just pour so much time and money into this and then down the road figure out this was never sustainable to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Having a logical framework, and you absolutely do not have to invent the wheel yourself. We're humans. We've been doing this a long time. There's some information out there. Take the best lessons, apply that, save yourself that disappointment. That would be one. Another one would be everything is an opportunity. An
Mm-hmm.
opportunity for growth, for learning. And as often as you can have that mindset, the more you're going to get out of every single situation.
Yes.
Truly.
It's a running joke almost in my business, which is like, lessons always cost money.
Mhm.
What that doesn't take into account is all of the things that I think about that have ever been negative in my business have taught me something that saves me time or energy later on. You encounter a problem, you're like, hey, I need to write that into what our procedures and code of conduct is for my staff. Now, the next time that I hire an employee, that's there, it's just baked in. And now it's not going to affect me in a negative way anymore. And that becomes a positive.
Yeah. And I know that there is totally, like, toxic positivity, and, like, this is not always applicable, but as often as you can look at something, and one of our dear friends, Chris Prentice, would always say, it's for your benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are able to access that, you will learn so much. And kind of reflecting back on, housekeeping, one of the most successful people that I know, she's like, everybody has to clean toilets, either literally or figuratively. Like, there's
Yeah.
just not a job that you're going to be having where you're not doing that. So embrace it. Don't take it personally. Don't get upset when you have to take out the trash in the office or do that extra thing. If you can not fake it, but like truly stay elevated during that, you are so much more fun to be around. Like, more opportunities will start to come to you much quicker.
You mentioned you have a healthy mix of dream big, mood, vision boards. How do you mix the dreaming in with the concrete of living?
I feel like if you have the dream big manifestation without some kind of grounded reality, like that is what can get you into an MLM. You just go for this dream.
Define an MLM
Oh,
for people.
a multi-level marketing, and I will add scheme, where people are sold this dream of like, you can be your own business owner and you should enter our like line of selling products and it's going to be amazing. And people buy the dream. They buy the vision, but they are not watching the reality, which is like, you are not making money and you are absolutely being manipulated. And that's the only danger. Like, besides that, we have so little control over anything in life. Like, go on and dream, go for it. But if you really want to achieve that dream, putting action behind it as well, I think is necessary. But there is also just coincidence or luck or kismet or serendipity and these things we don't have control over. And I mean, thank God, because that's so fun. I think one of the things I really love about the mood boards, vision boards, writing about stuff is the clarity that comes from that.
Yes.
I have pictures that I've been saving for well over a decade of just houses that made my heart feel really warm. And I went back and looked through them. I was like, oh, there is a clear theme here. And also pictures of many other things, but it can help you really tune into like, oh, this is what I like. If someone had asked me, I might not have been able to name it. That kind of clarity can be profound in it. You're like, all these houses are near water. Obviously, I want to be near water.
Yeah.
Let's make this happen. But there is a little bit of that kind of unexplained. I mean, there have been too many things in my life that have happened that there's not a logical explanation for it, but they've been so wonderful and kind of kismet that I just take them as a bonus. Why not? They make life exciting and they give you that buoy of hope.
A theme that I would say in you is that you're constantly open.
I am willing to receive wonderful opportunities and love and great situations, and also so here to provide all of that too. I want to be in conversation with the universe in that way of giving and receiving all that abundance.
So I would almost say that's more of a state of mind than anything from a vision board or anything like that. Those things help that, but that's a place that you live from. Openness to anything, right? Yeah. There's an openness to anything, and
absolutely,
life tends to close that off for some of us as we get older. If you're aware of that feeling, to feel gratitude or openness in a moment, to give yourself the reminder of that, because we all have responsibilities and all the things that come with an adult life, remind yourself, whatever that is, if that's a habit or a notification in your phone or a meditation before bed or when you get up or a journal, that there's something to open yourself up to.
Yeah, all this art behind me. I know this is a auditory medium, so it doesn't work, but I have art everywhere in my house, some that I've made, other that I've purchased, just as reminders of things that make me feel so grateful. For sure. I mean, I have a mindfulness practice, but probably the most informed thing comes from the hardest parts of life. Of the parts where I just promised myself, like, if you get through this, I really want you to appreciate everything that you have. And I really want you to express that to everybody who's near you. So it's something that comes out of my mouth constantly. If you're near me, where I'm like, I really appreciate this about you. I love this thing about you. This is great. And it's like, I would so much rather be annoying in that direction than to not communicate it. It's like, life is very unpredictable. And I feel very lucky to be here and to have the opportunity to express to people.
I love that. I have a practice where if I'm having a terrible day, what I'll do is send a message of love to someone, because if you put out love, you'll get back love. So if I feel bad, I try not to be like, oh, well, I feel crappy. Reach out to a friend that you haven't heard from in a long time and be like, how's it going? What's going on? I saw this thing online. Great pic of your kids, whatever that is. And you're just putting it out there that something is positive, and then that will get reflected back to you.
I love that.
What is the biggest piece of advice you have for someone trying to create a lifestyle they love?
My biggest piece of advice would be to get clear on what you actually love. There's, the classic example of like, oh gosh, I'd love to live by the ocean. That's where I'll retire. And then it doesn't happen, or you might show up and think, oh, this is not exactly what I planned. There's a video online, Design Your Rich Life by Ramit Sethi, who wrote I Will Teach You to Be Rich. And he just goes through some steps where you can identify, like, you might really enjoy fancy gym clothes and a nice gym membership, but other people wouldn't enjoy that. So figure out what you want so that you can actually build that. And I can say what I did to make that happen is there were big sacrifices. Like, I'm going to choose to live in my car on the coast of California so that I can live in Big Sur. I want to be able to see the ocean. I want to be able to wake up and smell it. I want to be able to go and walk down to the beach. And I want to have access to travel around the world. So I'm going to work these jobs, save a lot of money, and then go have these experiences. And it taught me so much. I mean, I had entertained the fantasy of living abroad. And then I visited my friends who were expats. And it gave a lot of perspective. It's like, I really like being in this country where I speak the language and understand all these different cultural norms. And that didn't feel quite as adventurous as I wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a truth for me at that time. And that really helped. I love being around nature. I have chosen to create my life and to choose houses that are in immediate proximity to beautiful nature. That means I can walk out my door and I can run for miles. And right now I'm in the Rocky Mountains. Before, that used to be the coast of California. And that brings me so much joy, and way more joy than going out and eating at restaurants, no matter how good they are, having the trendy water bottle or cool clothes. And it took these kind of micro dosing your passions and really understanding what that was like before you'd be like, this is what I want to commit to. I
always remember when you mentioned living in your car, and I thought, for all of our fire listeners out there, that is a primo example of frugal fire.
Yes. It's intense. I mean, I'm not the biggest person, so it wasn't impossible. It was a Honda Civic and then a Subaru, and then a brief flirtation with a Sprinter van, but I sold that. And it's not for me. If people want to do van life, that's great. I want to do house life.
Yeah.
I like houses.
Do you have a metaphor to share with us? Share a metaphor, Grace. You're on the spot.
Sure. I will bring you the metaphor that I developed in one of my coaching classes, which is the flame keeper. It's the image of these two hands delicately holding a small flame. And I could say that coaching is a lot of things. And each coach you work with is going to be different. But the gift that I can offer you is that if you do have that flame, that passion in your heart, and you're wanting to grow it and expand it, that is my specialty.
That's lovely. And on that note, where can our listeners find you?
My website, and it's my full name, graceadeleboyle.com. That's GraceAdeleboyle. Grace Adele, like the singer, Boyle.com.
Lovely. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for listening. This is so fun.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Manifestation and Money podcast. If you enjoyed today's conversation and want to continue your journey to financial empowerment and creating a life you love, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review.
Come follow us on Instagram at Manifestation and Money Podcast or at 4Leaf Lifestyle for more inspiration and behind the scenes content. Remember, your life is yours to live. Your financial freedom journey is as unique as you are. So hop in the driver's seat. It's time to create the life of your dreams.